Hi everyone, I'm Father Scott Vanderveer. I'm reflecting today on the difference between being an agnostic and being an atheist. A lot of our young people today call themselves atheists. They say, oh, I don't believe in God. But they actually are not describing atheism. They're describing something else. Because an atheist is someone who is convinced, who feels that they have proof that God does not exist. And anyone who relies on scientific proof about any kind of observable data knows that it's very hard to prove an absence. It is almost impossible to prove that something doesn't exist because science is based on measuring observable data. So many people have conjecture about God's existence based on their personal experiences or their own application of logic. But there is absolutely no way to prove that God is absent. How would one go about proving that? So, when our young people say, I'm an atheist, they don't really mean that. What they could mean is that I'm a materialist. A materialist is someone who only believes in things they can connect with their five senses, the material world. So a materialist says, I don't believe in anything that I can't observe. So a materialist has a very hard time with God because God is always beyond our ability to observe. But strictly speaking, a materialist also has a very hard time with love. What could we do with love? How do we prove or disprove love? How do we know if we're in the presence of true love or not? So, many of our young people are understandably going through at least a phase, if not a stance, that they are materialists. They do not believe in anything that they can't see with their eyes. And so a materialist says, if I can't see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, or feel it, I choose not to believe in it. What most of our young people are who say they're atheists is agnostic, which means I'm not sure what's out there, but I'm not ready to have a relationship with it yet. An agnostic admits I'm not quite sure. Gnosis is the Greek word for knowing. A means not knowing. Agnostics don't know if God exists or not. But agnostic, in its essence, is someone who's not really interested in reaching out to have a relationship. Since they don't know if God exists or not, they don't feel moved to try to connect with God or figure that out. So an atheist says there's nothing out there. An agnostic says there's something out there and I don't think I want to have a relationship with it, at least not right now. A believer says there's something out there and I want to know more about it. A disciple says there's something out there. That something cares about me and about this experience we're having, and I want to serve that. It's a long distance from I don't believe in this and I don't want to know any more about it to I know that this force exists, I have a relationship with it, and I want to serve it with my life. It's a very different way to approach existence. But since so many atheists do acknowledge there being a higher power of some sort, we recognize that a lot of people who call themselves atheists will say, I believe that there's a higher power, or they might say, I believe in the laws of science, and so I believe that that law, if you want to call it our higher power, I could believe in that. Well, that's very interesting, because that means that they're essentially saying there is a force that is above all things. There is a oneness, a groundedness that connects us all. We all have to acknowledge that our five senses are limited, and that many of us go through life not even having access to all five. People go blind, or they lose their hearing, or they go into a coma. Many of us lost smell and taste during COVID. What an experience that was. How strange to only have the experience of the texture of what was in your mouth and no flavor. But whatever it is that we're using our senses to discern, we have to acknowledge that it doesn't express everything that's going on out there. After all, there are radio and television waves and communication waves going on around us all the time that we don't pick up on unless we have a receiver. There are always messages and impulses traveling in the air all around us, and we don't perceive those or know about those until we have a way to broadcast them. So a radio receiver is a really good image of what it looks like to go on a journey of discovery about that higher power. All of us have to recognize that there is more to life that we don't know than we know. We know that most of the universe is dark energy or dark matter, and we know nothing about that. We actually don't even know what it is, which means that we know about one tiny sliver of what existence is all about. So for us to make broad proclamations about how the universe is structured and how it works and who's in charge or who's absent from that, when we know so little about so little, we have to acknowledge we have to spend most of our time as learners. Most of our lives are spent perceiving and humbly receiving more information a little bit at a time. I have a dear friend who captures this sense by just saying, more will be revealed. I think that's a pretty good way to go through life, to take what we've learned so far, to digest it the best we can, and then say, more will be revealed. It surely will. May all of us who are on this journey of faith and life draw strength from the comfort that comes from knowing how small we are as creatures and how big God, our higher power, the one beyond the universe, the Alpha and the Omega, truly, truly is. May that God bless you all.